for me, it was acceptable Mexican music, because in my taste, I really didn't like Mexican music at first. Like every time I saw like a Banda del Recodo ad in Rhode Island and on Univision, I was like, who buys this music? Like that doesn't appeal to me. Like that's like ranchero music.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I mean, all right, you are listening to the Brown Perspective. This is one of your hosts, Eduardo, and I'm here with El Mero Mero Camionero RO.
What's going on?
Bien, bien, aquí acordándome de los buenos tiempos cuando teníamos a la reina tejana de la música tejana, la Selena, la princesa.
23 years old. That's how old she was. I forget
Yeah.
that.
What do you remember most about Selena or when you first learned about her?
Her death?
Really? You didn't know Selena before her death?
No, I tried to finish the sentence for you. I thought you were going to ask me what I remember most about the day that she died.
Oh, okay. We're making our way there. First, we gotta, as a young teenage boy, Latino boy growing up, seeing the beautiful Selena on TV. What was the first time you remember that?
Look, honestly, it sounded like any other cumbia songs to me.
Hmm.
I like them. I like the melody. I'm a melody guy, so if I like the melody, I like the song. And I thought she had a good singing voice, but I didn't. Look, I actually thought she was just another Mexican singer. I didn't
Mm.
know anything about her background. It's not until she died that there was more coverage of her, and I started learning more about her. But as a kid, I didn't really know.
And it's funny because maybe because I knew her as through Univision, and I think they kind of were covering her and making the fact that here's a young lady who is just learning or had to relearn her Spanish, who was able to sing in Spanish while she was able to learn more of it, feel more comfortable in the language, but obviously through and through being a very proud Latina and being very warm and very creative
Hmm.
and really just that and not only able to sing in Spanish, but then the fact that she sung in English, she was um, you know, she would have been an amazing crossover star. She would have been a huge star, I think, in English and Spanish.
Yeah, there was a guy, an older guy at the time. He must have been 24 or 25. And but he was such a huge fan. So I knew that she had a following, that there was something about her that was connecting with people in a different way. But I also at the same time I think I remember just thinking that this is a 24-year-old guy that loves Selena just because she's a female singer, and he
Hmm.
probably has that type of crush on her, right? The way that a young, early 20-year-old would have on a female singer. So all of that stuff was lost on me until after her passing, and then I started learning more about her.
Yeah, and I think to this day, nothing gets the a Latino dance going. In particular, Latino dance, and Selena. As when I play music, when I DJ music, Selena is one of my go-to songs because I think she's that in La Sonora Dinamita,
Yeah.
because it's the type of song that just every Latino dances, where you're a Latino who grew up in the East Coast or in Florida and Texas and California. You put Selena on and everybody's having a good time, and it's that cumbia beat that everybody's so accustomed to. So it's like for me, it was like for me, and again, I know I shared this with you, but for me, it was acceptable Mexican music, because in my taste, I really didn't like Mexican music at first. Like every time I saw like a Banda del Recodo ad in Rhode Island and on Univision, I was like, who buys this music? Like that doesn't appeal to me. Like that's like ranchero music.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I mean, I like ranchera music because I'm familiar with that, but this the banda, like what the hell is this? Quebradita, what the hell?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
so yeah,
definitely a
but
lot
anyway,
more
so for me it
regional.
was kind of like the first time I was like, oh wow, a talented um Mexican American singing in Spanish, and oh wow, she actually sings better in English, and not better, but equally good in English,
Yeah.
and yeah, so I mean, I knew that she was a start just at the beginning.
Yeah, definitely the cumbia has always had more of a an accepted mainstream appeal, especially
Hmm.
also because it's danceable too. But
Yeah.
she had a huge role also in helping making it go
Hmm.
mainstream. And we had again we after her death we had the movie with Jennifer Lopez back in the I think it was the late 90s. And then now Netflix has a is it a 9 part series that they've
Yeah,
released.
9 episode series.
And I don't know, are they releasing a second one as well? Or
Well, we don't know yet. That's the hope, because apparently, and I just started to watch it. I think I watched 2, 3 episodes yesterday, and but I think we know we'll see how. I think if it does well, and I know apparently yesterday it was #1 on Netflix,
really?
so I think if it goes well, maybe it will get a second season, and I hope it does,
Well, the reviews
because
haven't been stellar. I was I haven't seen it. The reviews they've been okay. The criticism has
yeah,
been that it's focusing more on like her dad and her sister
yeah, the
or the
rest of the
family,
family, yeah.
as opposed to really trying to explore and bring to light more about her, what made her tick, what inspired her, what motivated her. So that's
Hmm.
I haven't seen it, but I can tell you though that when I watched this trailer, it looked like a Lifetime movie to me, and I wasn't as interested in watching it. It didn't capture me. I didn't say, "Oh, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch this." And
It's
I know
funny
that,
because when you say Lifetime movie, I think everybody knows what you mean.
yeah. And
At
look,
least
I'm
I
not,
did.
yeah. I hope people don't get upset that here's a Mexican American criticizing, right. Like, I'll support Latino productions all day long, but they also have to be good.
Yeah, no, that's true. You make a good point. And one, I think I haven't I just started watching it and I definitely noticed that part of it. And I think in some ways it's kind of hard. And I know the good thing about is that she was just kind of becoming famous as the internet was becoming more common. So I know there's some YouTube videos. She actually did this amazing YouTube video talking about the differences between or the history of Latinos in the United States in Texas, California, etc. But I think part of the reason that people are upset is because apparently, según las malas lenguas,
Hmm.
según los chismosos, the brown perspective listeners who are chismosos, según dicen las malas lenguas, apparently Netflix didn't really invest as much as they could have to make this in terms of a better production, and so it could have been the type of movie that I know that people like URO want to see on Netflix and other platforms.
Look, I have to see it first, and so that I can really be able to offer a more objective criticism. I just going on based on the trailer here, the casting, it doesn't look like it's a strong cast. I think this is I recognized this actress right away, and it took me like 2 or 3 seconds to recognize her from The Walking Dead. This is Rosita from The Walking Dead. She
Yeah.
wasn't the strongest actress there, and I think here she seems like she's doing an okay job, but all of those around her is it's not that they're not recognized actors. It's just that they don't have that like gravitas that you're looking for. They don't have it to be able to carry scenes, to give a scene like a seriousness to pull you into the story. And that also might be the storytelling, but or might it maybe just be the way that they put this trailer together. So that was my first reaction. And then when I started reading the reviews, I thought, oh, okay, so not only is the casting somewhat questionable, the production quality, but it also looks like the storytelling is not going to be great because they're not really focusing a lot on her. And the more I read about it, and specifically one of the, it wasn't a review. This was more about someone wrote an article about the Netflix series de Selena. It was talking
Hmm.
about how the family was involved in the production very intimately. And by the way, the you mentioned to me earlier about the producer of the series as well, right?
Yes, so the producer of the series, one of the executive producers of the series, Moises Zamora, is a fellow Brown alum. Go
Nice.
Bruno.
Yep. And so, but what I was thinking when I was reading about this was, I wonder if the problem is that the family has been so closely involved with the production, not only of the series but also the movie. So I wonder if they're trying very hard to portray her in a specific way, right?
Mm-hmm.
To portray their family in a way to say, well, we feel comfortable sharing this type of struggle or this type of aspect of our family, but not these other
Mm-hmm.
areas. We won't go there. And so maybe they're not giving you like the real, the raw story, the ups and downs, to portray her in a way that connects better with people, or to portray her family. So I don't know, maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe it's that the family has been heavily involved. Maybe at some point in the future somebody else will, if there's an autobiography, or maybe somebody will do research on her, they can put together a like a movie or a better series.
Yeah, no, you make a good point, and I think that's what I know some of the criticism is, and I think, and part of it is understandable because it is a family. It was their daughter, their sister. They do. I mean, it was. They were also part of the band and the effort, and I think they do um, take the opportunity in this series to tell you a little bit more about the father, about the brother and the sister, and the others that were involved. And to your point, unfortunately, because she's dead, she's not here to tell her own story, tell her perspective. And I'm sure that there are going to be um, non-authorized bios that maybe get more into what her perspective might have been. But I think it's hard because unfortunately she's not here to tell her own story like so many other artists have been able to do because of that. So yeah, so in some ways and it's also like so difficult because I feel that the original Selena movie had a similar criticism, and also because Jennifer Lopez was the person that was casted
Mm-hmm.
as Selena, Puerto Rican, not a Mexican, even though I remember that Univision or whoever the production company was, they did like tryouts for Selena in all major cities, and you see lines of Latinas dressed like Selena
Mm-hmm.
and trying to audition for to become her on the movie, and then they end up getting Jennifer Lopez, which at that time, she was an actress, maybe not as widely known, but it was definitely a role that kind of helped boosted her career, at least as an actor.
Mm-hmm.
So inevitably, it's difficult to do a Selena story without being subject to the criticisms about whether the actress is like her, whether they tell enough about her story, whether the family was too involved. And I'm afraid that that's going to be, unfortunately, the type of questions that will surface every time we have the new Selena movie.
Usually it's not a big deal for me who they're casting. Like, look, honestly, if they're casting Jennifer Lopez as a Mexican, I don't have a problem with that. I'm usually more interested in the story, and the way that that
Mm.
story is brought to life. And I'm wondering if with Selena, with this series, is that they have a difficult job in telling her story, because her story is so intertwined with her whole family story. It's really hard to tell her story without telling her dad's story. And
Hmm.
because I know that they want to portray her as breaking down barriers, right? And pushing the boundary and introducing a whole segment of the population to a type of music that wasn't really accepted before. But it was really her dad that went through a lot of those problems. And that's why
Hmm.
they covered the dad, because he's the one that was trying to break down a lot of these barriers. And so when it comes to Selena, yeah, she struggled, but I don't think that struggle was as big as the father's. But then they try to tell the father's story, then you get criticism. It's like, oh, well, you guys are you going to tell a story about Selena, or are you going to focus on the father? And I don't
Hmm.
think they know how to separate those two things, how to separate the struggle of the family from the struggle of Selena. And I think if I'm telling this story, and if I really wanted to tell a story about Selena, I would just focus on like if there was any trauma or any actual problems with the relationship with her father as a result of all of the struggles that her father went through. Don't focus so much on the father in itself, just kind of highlight the struggles that he went to, but then focus on how that may have either scarred Selena or motivated her or not motivated her. And then see if
Hmm.
you can tie that into the type of relationship that she developed with this woman that ultimately killed her. Because that right there is interesting. Like, what happened there? Was it that somebody dropped the ball? Somebody that there were obvious signs that this woman was problematic, but Selena didn't like heed the warnings, or was it that nobody saw it coming and that this woman was just malicious? Like, there's so much to tell there, but if you're not going to explore that aspect because you're so busy just trying to tell the whole story of the whole family and capture every single struggle of the father and the sisters, and look, part of me, I think I'm just kind of speculating here as to what the story's like. But what I'm saying is, if the criticism is that there wasn't enough Selena, I'm just trying to say, yeah, I can see that criticism, and I can see why people, or I'm trying to explain how I would try to focus on her, the areas
Hmm.
that are specific to her, not necessarily her whole family.
Yeah, but in some ways they're inseparable, right? Because Selena grew up within this family, and for better or worse, she's a product of the family, and she experienced all of those experiences with the family, with her family. And I think you talk about the potential trauma that she faced. I mean, I think you can make a strong argument that she faced racism, that her father faced racism. Probably one of the reasons why they didn't teach her Spanish, or she didn't speak Spanish, was because her parents wanted to shield her, as many parents have had to do in Texas and California and so many other parts of the country, shield them from the discrimination, the racism for speaking Spanish, or speaking English with an accent. So that's one piece. And obviously, the other probably likely trauma is that, she was in some ways being forced to live her father's dream, because the father was a a musician, and he had of his own band. Something happened, and obviously he didn't become famous. So in some ways, he saw the opportunity to live his dream of becoming a professional musician, and or also having the ability to say, you know what, my daughter is good, but she's more than good. She's great, and she can be the type of artist who can be amazing. So there's that piece, and then the piece that I think the first episodes have already gotten into is the fact that the how hard it is to be a young musician, right? So
Mhm.
it was the family going on tours, her missing school, because of the gigs and the things that the family had to do in order to survive after losing their restaurant
But
and going on food stamps. And now, making music as a family was one of the main ways they could provide for each other and protect each other. So I think that that's also starting to get captured. It's captured in the episodes that I've seen. But also as a young musician, she didn't get to have a normal life. And similar to Michael Jackson, I think there's probably a lot of things that she missed out that she wanted to do, but she didn't get a chance to, because she was a talented singer who needed to go and perform every weekend.
so I have to watch those first few episodes then, because the another review that I was reading was actually criticizing specifically that they didn't really focus a lot on how going through that experience affected her. That it's not, again, that it's more giving you a very superficial recounting of what that was like, what being on
Yeah.
the road was, what being on the struggle. That it doesn't really dive deep enough into that. It's more specifically into how that affected her. But you're telling me that it does in the first few episodes, so maybe I have to watch them too.
Yeah, because the thing is, I think her father discovered her talent earlier on. So I think she must have been maybe 10, 11. So can you imagine at 10 or 11, having to perform at, family gatherings, weddings, and other parts. And then, that pressure
Well, I mean,
that,
I can imagine all that. I guess the question is, does the series do a good job of portraying that and letting you connect with Selena and allowing you to see all that?
to an extent, but not really, because like to your point, there's so many stories, so many things that need to be said. Maybe if they would have had more money from Netflix, maybe they would have had more opportunity to film
It's
it.
possible.
Or to your point, it's just hopefully there's additional seasons, because I think if there are additional seasons, I think then they can explore those elements. And I do hope that there are additional seasons so they can get into the other part of the story, because I think
Yeah.
it stops before anything happens with Yolanda. I think she's just being introduced to Yolanda. But I think other seasons would allow for us to get to know each character, but most importantly, Selena, and see her with that struggle.
Yeah. The parallel that comes to mind in American mainstream culture is the story of Michael Jackson. So
Hmm.
if you were doing a biopic of Michael Jackson, right, you would have to talk about his father and the way that the father treated them. But
Yeah.
the father would not be like, he would get some part in the beginning to lay the foundation for how it is that Michael Jackson grew up. But then the story would focus solely on Michael Jackson. You wouldn't have a story that focused a lot, at least on his father. I would think not, because there's just, you need to explore Michael Jackson. The same thing here. You want to explore Selena. You need to explore her from her point of view, and I think this is what the where the skill or the talent comes in being able to bring a project like this to life, that you do have to straddle and balance all of those different stories and still make it so that she's the center of attention and everyone else
Hmm.
is just a supporting cast telling hints of their stories to let you know how it is that they influence her. And I mean, that's what I would like to see. If, and again, I still need to watch the series, but just based on the reviews, unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it hit the mark. Maybe it's good. You said that it's trending. You said it was top 10 on Netflix.
Yeah, I thought it was one of the top movies yesterday. And part of the reason I started watching was because of that, because, I feel like, Latinos and blacks and other communities of color gets, but as it comes to entertainment, get in this area of where, unfortunately the production doesn't get to the point where it needs to be. Um, but part of it is appreciating the struggle to even get a story like this being told, and everything that had to um, come together for the movie to have been made, for now the series with Netflix to be made. It feels like there's this additional pressure, and not only is there pressure that doesn't have the support, and then if it doesn't do good,
Mm-hmm.
the chances of other stories of other people being able to tell the Selena story or get deeper into it, or for them to get deeper into it, won't be possible because low ratings, it didn't do well. Similar to what we were talking about earlier on in the Bad Bunny episode about ratings, right? So I think Netflix is one of those folks that they know that the Latino public is there and they want quality and they want to see themselves portrayed on TV too. But unfortunately, is a really something hard to do when you think about the financial support, the talent, and so many other things that need to come together in a very haphazard way sometimes without the
It,
full support of the big companies of the big industry.
so I think there's enough interest in her that I do think that we'll see other projects, other productions come to life about her in the future.
Hmm.
The way I see it is like, look at how many movies there are about Batman, and not all of them hit the mark. I mean, some are good, some are not. Um,
That's a good point.
with Selena, there's gonna be a lot of stories, and I think if this one didn't get it right, maybe it's better than the movie, but maybe it lays a good foundation for finally being able to tell her story in an accurate way, one that is more captivating, and one that can be a universal story, not one that we're talking about it because we want to watch it just because we're Latinos. One that is universal in the appeal that it speaks to everyone, not just to Latinos, and because her struggles are universal, right? And
Hmm.
so I'm waiting for the day when they feature Oscar Isaac as Selena's father. Then you're talking about a powerful cast.
Mira nomás. But you know what? I think what's gonna happen. I think this series and the attention on Selena is gonna inspire, and for me the sad thing too about what happened to Selena, other than obviously losing her too soon, is the fact that I feel that Tejano music kind of sort of got lost from the map, and I think one of the ways, similar to what happened with Hector Lavoe, that Mark Anthony and Jennifer Lopez did his life. But I think with Mark Anthony doing Hector Lavoe, it was great because you have one of the great salsa singers who somewhat looks like Hector Lavoe, who some would argue has maybe parts of his lifestyle, but able to portray him in such a way, but more importantly, being able to like sing his songs, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be able to sing his songs and make not obviously not be Hector Lavoe, but at least get to Hector Lavoe level. So I'm hoping that maybe in the not too distant future we'll have a young Tejana who looks like Selena, probably has her own musical taste, but who's able to kind of ex- to portray Selena in an authentic way that would help us get a better sense of the amazing human being that she was
We'll
and the
see. Yeah,
amazing artist that she was.
yeah. Cumbias are not as popular these days as they were in the '90s. There's other styles that have taken over, but we'll see. Maybe there'll be an artist. Just to close it out, in the beginning I talked about the guy that I knew in his early 20s who was such a huge fan. So when news came out about her death, I mean, this guy was devastated, and that's what I remember about Selena's death. I
Mm.
remember I remember him. He locked himself in his house for like 2 weeks, and he would not come out. Like, just, I think, drunk, like, for the whole 2 weeks, listening to her albums. Like, this guy was going through a rough time. Like, people
Yeah.
had to literally go in there and get him out because he wasn't coming out. That's how devastated he was.
Yeah, I think it was a devastating loss. I sort of felt it most than most of us because obviously he kind of had a true appreciation of her talent and her abilities as a singer and what she was doing for the genre, for Latinos, and for so many other things, for Texas and other things. So, but I think that it was definitely sad. I think that's one of the reasons why we were so fascinated with who she was is that we feel that we were, as a community, we were cheated out of her, right? We didn't have the opportunity to see Selena como una flor florecer, fully blossom into the into the artist that we all knew she was. But so yeah, it was a devastating loss, and it was hard to cope with. I remember when I was like, wait, what? What happened? Like Selena? Like at first it seemed like a like a movie, like a bad like Hollywood movie. Like wait, what's going on? Like this is something not like that can be true. And back then it was just like the media, right? It was Univision,
Hmm.
other channels, so there wasn't social media, but it just felt like a bad nightmare. So yeah, so I think maybe to your earlier point, maybe we'll also learn a little bit more about what went into the Yolanda and why people missed any signs of that might have maybe saved her life and protected her from people like her.
Yeah. So again, we're just having a conversation here about the series. Haven't finished watching it, but we do encourage other people to go out there and see it and tell us what you think about it, see whether you liked it or not. So far, again, the reviews don't seem that great, but maybe I need to, maybe there'll be other reviews that are better. Maybe there are parts of it that are good. So I do have to see it yet. So I'm not saying that I won't.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Then I think we'll leave it at that. Make sure to follow us. We're on Brown Perspective on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. Nos vemos.
Ciao.